All right, so welcome everyone, and I'm super excited because we are back with our newsletter after a brief pause of a few weeks. We needed to reshuffle things, and yeah, there's a lot happening in our industry. So we wanted to take a little pause to replan and reorganize our newsletter. But we're back with great content as usual, and I have today my dear friend and esteemed colleague Rick Leach, who is our Director of Content Operations. He'll be joining me in the newsletter going forward. So, for today, we have a very exciting episode. We're going to be talking about helpful content. Of course, we got to talk about the Verge article that everybody's talking about, something about AI and ethics, very interesting topic as well. We also want to cover the topic of trust. There's a lot of talk about trust, but I think it's something that is worth digging in. There's great announcements around SGE going into a lot of new countries and more languages. And of course, the Open AI Dev Day that just happened 2 or 3 days ago. Lots going on. So very exciting conversation today. So let's get into it, Rex, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the introduction. It has been, not just a crazy few weeks, couple months at work, just like you said, in the industry, it's just so much change. But yeah, let's kick it off with helpful content. And I don't want to get into the entirety of helpful content. I want to talk about one little bit that caused a bit of a stir recently, and resulted in the clarification of some language when it comes to doing refreshes. A lot of companies are going in and making minor changes. We call them updates or refreshes to their content, and then they're hitting that last updated tag and putting the most whatever today's date is on it and going with it. But the messaging we're getting from Google is that anyone who's abusing the date system, the last updated system, could be sending a negative signal to Google. This could be black hat. But that did cause some concern. And, so one person likened it to video games, right? So if a developer makes a change to a video game, they always put out update notes because the gamers, they need to know what's changed, every little detail. You change the price on some in-game resource, I want to know about it. And that this is the same with content, right? That if we go in, we make a couple of changes to the grammar, maybe reduce wordiness in a sentence. I've updated it. I can change the date, and what gives Google the right to determine whether a small change was valuable or not. And the point is fair, but the I didn't like the analogy, Carlos. It was like gamers are in that content every day, right? They're going to see that change. If it was 5 gold pieces yesterday and it's 6 gold pieces today, people are going to know. If you didn't put out a new update, version 9.0.2, then they're going to know, they're going to complain. But people consume content generally once. They don't need to know that you came in and you removed some commas and you cleaned up a few words. I'm of the belief that if you're updating content and not bringing it current to today, then the original article's date should remain. Just doing a little house cleaning on the content, updating some grammar, and then taking an article that's 3 years old and giving it a date, that's misleading.
I know, and some SEOs sometimes just want to do the least effort, right? And they think that these little tactics are going to help them rank. Like, look, if you didn't rank in the first place with the article, this is not going to change anything. And yeah, it's deceiving. If you just changing the date, it's totally deceiving. So being deceitful, signals lack of trust. So whether the content is good or not, but is distrustful because you're not updating the article. So you always have to ask yourself, am I really updating this article? And change the date is not updating the article. Am I bringing a new piece of information? Or even I'm subtracting something that is not relevant anymore. I'm changing to an example that is more relevant. So just this morning, you and I were chatting about this particular article that was that we wrote around AI and how to use AI, but that thing gets outdated every couple months. So we're not going to just change the data, republish it, because that'd be deceiving. We just pretty much need to redo the article or a big chunk of the article to keep it current. So I think people need to ask themselves, am I adding value by refreshing this or just change the date? it's not like the answer is not change the date. If you're going to really refresh it, just refresh it. Add new information. There's some information is evergreen. You don't need to refresh it, right? Because it's not going to change. So, but just by changing the date, unless you're not adding anything new, then I don't think it's worth that practice, right? And is it going to be helpful? Does it help the reader by having a new date? It doesn't, because it's the same information. So it's a question.
No, it erodes trust. It not just sends that negative signal, that potential negative signal to Google that you might be trying to game the system, but personally, I pay attention to dates, and I bet most of our audience does. When we're looking up information about what's going on in digital marketing, I want what's fresh and what's new. And if I click on something because it says October 2023, November 2023, and I go into it and I see a bunch of information that was maybe new and fresh a year ago, not only does that it bugs me, but I notice which website I'm on. And my trust for that.
Yeah, no, totally right. So I think it's a good reminder for everybody that, look, just change the date is not, it's not helpful. So it's all about helpful content, right? So yeah, just do a little bit more work. And I know it seems it's so tempting to go the easy route and just change dates, because it's going to take you just minutes to do that. But yeah, there is no easy route in the world of content. There's no easy route in the world of SEO. So you got to do your homework though, and really update and create helpful content. All right, awesome. So what else do we have on the news today?
Well, we're talking about trust, so let's talk about it a little bit more, right? From the on the other side of the spectrum, like how we all know EEAT. We know that trustworthiness is one of the major pillars of EEAT. But let's talk about what goes into trustworthiness, particularly as it applies to B2B content.
But before we go there, can we talk about the thing
Oh,
is
I know what
everybody's
you want
talking
to
about?
talk about. I know
Yeah,
what you want to talk about. You want to talk about that Verge article.
yeah. I mean, because we're talking about trust, and this is one of those things where that article, for those of you that haven't read it, is very entertaining. But I kind of feel I have bittersweet about promoting it too much, because we're gonna give them more clicks, which they don't actually deserve. And actually, if you haven't seen the article, it's called, I think, the people that broke the internet, or the people that ruined the internet. And I think it just presents a very unfair picture about SEOs and the world of SEO, and makes it look like about like a subculture of people gaming the system and trying to print money by gaming the system. Rather ironically, The Verge is using kind of a little bit of what is it called, like tabloid style of thing to get eyeballs, right? So it's quite ironic that they're kind of in a way criticizing the world of SEO that it's been trying to manipulate search, but they're pretty much doing the same. So in terms of talking about trust, like it's very hard to trust a publication like The Verge after reading such an article that is misinformed, misguided, and at the end of the day, it's unhelpful, because people that don't know about the world of SEO are going to walk away from that article, with a very bad, unrealistic picture of what it is. Now, for people that understand the SEO world very well, is going to walk away feeling like, okay, this is just a misrepresentation or a caricature of SEO. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. Of course, there's a big uproar from SEOs because they thought, okay, this is not great. Well, you gotta give. The only thing I would rescue from the article, great storytelling, very interesting, very entertaining. But this is one of those ways where storytelling is being used to manipulate people into staying engaged with an article that is not presenting a great picture. Again, that's just my opinion as a reader, but also kind of collecting some of the opinions out there. I don't know, Rick. I know you told me I only got to a few the first 1,000 words and then lost interest. So I don't know. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, you make a good point. It was good writing, and if the author is watching this, feel free to reach out. I've got work for you. But I got to be honest, Carlos. I feel like after getting through a couple thousand words, like this guy's opinion is about 10 years old. Maybe even a little longer. Some of the tactics he was describing, like that's just not what happens today. and I don't know where he's searching that he's getting absolute garbage for search results. But SEO is so evolved now, and the focus being on good, valuable content that, I mean, of course, there's still some things that come through that, this doesn't quite fit what I'm looking for. Um, but I don't think we're anywhere near the world he's describing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think. I think everything is more nuanced than that. I think Google has evolved dramatically. Search in general has evolved so much. Of course, our bar of satisfaction continues to rise, to go up. But I think they still do a good job. And look, I'm not like a Google champion by any means. I think they do a terrific job, and they've done a terrific job in search. But I think it's a little bit unfair how it's being portrayed. So anyway, a good example of how not to how not to build trust with your audience. But anyway, we can move now. Yeah, but this world is not so much about the eyeballs and the reads anymore. Is about being helpful. So anyway, let's move into the trust side that you want to dive in. So we look at the other side of the coin.
Trust is a bit of a theme in today's conversation. So I had already kind of introed this, talking about trustworthiness as being one of the major pillars of EEAT. But within that, that one's kind of tough. Like, how do you build trust in content, right? Especially when it comes to B2B. I'd put out there that this article was 100% right, in what it pointed out as ways you can build trust in B2B content. Um, so it gave four pillars itself. So you got the four pillars of EEAT, and then within trustworthiness, there's four pillars that can help you there as it relates to the actual words on paper that you're publishing, to your B2B prospects. First one is storytelling, right? There's nothing like real world examples. Anybody can build content that's how to, and it's a list. But until you kind of show your clients, here are real world, here's what we as a company went through, here's why we built this thing, this service, this product, this software. This is what happened in our lives that told us there's a need for this and we're going to build it. Here's what happened with these case studies. A perfect example of storytelling, right? Here's a real world problem. Here's a real world solution, and here's the real world results that happened between our business and a prospect or client just like you, right? That's something that speaks to clients. They're coming to you. They've got a problem to solve. Case studies are a perfect example of storytelling. They help build trust. Data. I see this with our writers from time to time, and it's something we stress with them. Sometimes writers get lazy, right? We find that low hanging fruit. A lot of people like to write content that starts with a little statistics, some interesting data, but they're taking it from other articles that also cited that same data, rather than just digging through that rabbit hole of link to link to link until you finally work your way back to the study. Look for other data. You'll notice, like, you're seeing the same statistic in a lot of content because of laziness, right? So dig through, find the study. There's more data in there. If you're big enough that you can actually poll your own audience, do it. Create your own unique data. That's huge value, and it does help build trust with your audience if you've got data that they can verify, that helps support whatever argument you're making for your product or your service. The third, experts, which, like, how is that a pillar of trustworthiness with an expertise as part of EEAT? But it is. It also lends to trustworthiness, and you see it more and more today. Every article is written by this person, reviewed by that person. We're putting bios on listicles. I mean, it's gotten pretty crazy. Everybody wants that expertise, but it's important, and it's more important when it comes to B2B, right? You need to display the expertise in your content. So odds are you're not using your experts to write your content because they're not writers, right? But are you getting the information from your You're experts because you've got a company full of experts at what they do. Are you getting that information from them, those insights, those things that only they know, and getting it to your copywriters so that it can be in your content? That really rings true. I mean, we've all read content that just basically looks like a regurgitation of what's currently ranking for whatever keywords you're targeting, right? They all say the same thing. They're shallow. They don't go into a lot of depth. There's nothing. I'm not going to learn anything from this article that I'm not going to learn from the next six down the list. And the way to break that is through expertise with your own experts. You know, you're the expert. Carlos, you're an expert. I'm an expert. You know, and what we do, we have some really valuable insights that our audience can use. So get that to your writers. Make sure that that is woven into your content. It comes through and it builds trust. And last, solve a problem. You know, it's funny how often content forgets that part. You know, you've got to provide value. And if I, as a prospect, end up on a site for some product or service that I'm looking at, I'm coming there. I have something that needs solving. And how can your product help me solve that? You know, how can your article help me solve that? Give me a little bit in there. Tell me something that I can do that makes my life a little bit easier right now. You do that and you build trust with me in your website, in your brand. And I'm more likely to buy your product, subscribe, whatever the case may be. But make sure that your content solves.
Okay, so storytelling, data, and I think like I like what you said. Sometimes first party data is a great way to go if you have the resources and the ability, access to experts. And you know, I always surprise how underestimated or under leveraged are internal experts. All businesses will have their own experts, but what happens sometimes the marketing is very siloed and doesn't have access to those experts or haven't thought about leveraging those experts. So if you have experts internally, bring them into the fold, extract their knowledge from their head, and put that expertise into your content. And and then, of course, solve a problem. And that should be the whole purpose of creating content. Just to demonstrate to your audience that you're willing to give them something, that you're willing to give them something in exchange for their attention, right? Their attention is not free. You're asking for their attention. Give them something that they can walk away with, which is a solution, a question, a piece of information, something that is going to be actionable, making their life better. So I think that's great. I think another way to think about trust is signals of distrust, right? So, because I did a presentation, Content Marketing World, just last month, and one of one of the pieces of my topic was trustworthiness, and it's very hard to determine like signals of trustworthiness, but you can understand what are signals of lack of trustworthiness, right? Like not having a clear purpose of your site, not having that authorship in your site, talking to about a topic that you have no background or expertise on, right? It's like me talking about veterinary uh, you know, pet health when I'm in content marketing, and that's you know what I mean. So talking about things that are not in your expertise or area of expertise, things like that, or lots of links, lots of ads. Those things don't create a lot of trustworthiness with your audience or a lot of trust with your audience. So
They don't. It throws your monetization.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, but no, thanks, Rick. Those are great tips for how to inject trust into your content. Now, I think this week was exciting with announcement, and I think just today or yesterday, Google announced that SGE is going to be available in 120 countries. I smiled and I was very happy because I live in Canada and I was dying to get my hands on SGE. Didn't want to use a VPN, and finally is going to be here and in 119 more countries. So not only that, but it's also available in Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, and Indonesian. And I think it was also available before in Japanese, and it was available in India, but I'm not sure which language or which is only English. But again, great news. You have to subscribe to Google Labs to be able to get access to SEE. So yeah, great news for people who are interested in experiencing this new AI powered search modality within Google. So I can't wait to get my hands on it. I know Rick.
I'm sorry you've had to live without it for weeks.
I made it. I survived. I know. But, what's you've used it for a bit. What's your first impression on it? And what should be people expecting that haven't had a chance to play with it yet?
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you, and I don't know why. I don't have a reason for this. I find myself on mobile skipping it. I don't. I think this comes back to trust. As somebody like I'm up to my neck in AI and working on it, and I love it. I absolutely love it, but I also know what its limitations are right now. So I think it's probably a subconscious thing, but I'm scrolling on my mobile. But don't get me wrong, it's going to get better, right? And if it's putting a lot of inaccurate stuff out there, it's either going to go away or they're going to fix it. So let's assume it's here to stay. We need to optimize for it. The good news is optimizing for it is just as it's very similar to optimizing for snippets, and for people also ask, right? Get to the point, answer answer your question subheaders quickly in that first paragraph, deliver as much information early as you can. But it brings up an interesting optimization that we haven't really had to think of before, and it's images. Not just do you have them, but what are they? Are they optimized for SGE? Do they pop? Because you'll see it. You get these three. You've probably seen it already, but you get these like three images to the right of the entry on desktop, and those are like links. They'll take you to those websites. They tell you what they are. And if your image is, I don't know, brown and boring and awful, but the other two just kind of pop out, and they're well centered, and uh, those sites are more likely to get the clicks. Would you agree?
I think it needs to be taken into account, and I think we'll learn more about how to optimize for AI and SGE over the next few months, especially now that it's going to be available in many more geos. So there's going to be a lot of brain power, a lot of SEOs playing with it and trying to optimize for it. So um, hopefully, in one of the future issues of this newsletter, we'll come in with some tips on something that we have learned around optimizing for SGE. But very exciting that more people are going to have access to it. And let's close by talking a little bit about the announcement this week. Super exciting. OpenAI have their very first dev day. Lots of demos, lots of news, new things are coming down the pipe. So very, very exciting stuff. So Rick, I know you've been playing a lot with AI over the last few weeks. So what's your take on it on this development?
GPT-4 Turbo, the jump from four the jump from 3.5 to 4 was significant in its reasoning capabilities, its ability to handle complex instructions, but the jump in its the tokenization, how much information you can give it in one shot. So GPT-4 is about 8,000 tokens, and if you're not sure how that works, a token's like 2 to 4 characters, and you get 8,000 tokens, but in a round trip. So your input and the subsequent output can total 8,000 tokens. If it exceeds that, you're going to get truncated. So now we're at 128,000 tokens.
Yeah, so that's awesome. That's because I know it was very frustrating when you wanted to give it a transcript or something more like a longer piece. It would just get frozen or wouldn't work. So now we're pretty much saying they expanded the capacity by a factor of 12 times, right? So you already tested it, put in longer inputs, right? So what's your first impression? Does it work as promised?
Yeah, it does. It does. I don't know. I don't have a thought yet on if that expanded input allows for expanded complexity. Um, I've created some pretty robust prompts where it's struggling to process all the information and perform all the actions I'm asking it to take. So now I can put in even more, but I'm not quite sure where we're landing yet as far as, is this just an increase in input and output, or is it now able to actually handle more actions? So don't think it's quite there yet, but still, just what it should do is actually expand the contextual window. Within any thread, Carlos, once you get so far down, GPT no longer remembers what you started the thread with. So for those who have tried to create content or do something that takes a lot of back and forth, if you haven't noticed, the longer you're at it, the dumber it gets, right? It can be frustrating. Well, that's because there's a moving window of context that it can refer back to. Anything prior to that cutoff is gone. So you have to like remind it, by the way, here's the brief we're working with.
Keeps more memory, more context. So hopefully we'll refine the output. I think the other big thing for me was the announcement of the marketplace, and also you will have the ability to create your own GPT. So I think internally we have been talking about how to take our clients' information or even our own information and create our own models, which we can refine on our end. And even maybe when we create certain models that are more standard, we can put it in the marketplace and maybe put it out there for clients to use. We're using a lot of these AI technology to enhance content rather than to produce content per se. We're using it to enhance it, right? So if we can create our own agent without having to do a bunch of coding, we could put out there very useful tools for content marketers. But what's your initial impression on that news around the own GPTs?
With these individual GPTs that we can customize to different clients' preferences, one of the biggest challenges we face as a content provider is, especially on at scale projects, is getting consistency from so many different people. So imagine building a tool for writers that knows exactly what your client's voice is. It knows exactly what their specific requirements are. It knows what the goal is, and it can help guide those writers to keep them on track. Now, the writers may be equipped with really good information and good insights from your experts, but they're struggling to hit your voice. And what would otherwise be super valuable content for you is kind of because it's missing on voice, it's missing on tone. They're not strong with CTAs. They didn't lead you to get the behavior that you're wanting for, but the information's awesome. Imagine tools that can guide the writer who has that information to really check all the boxes. Not only is it good information, but it's on target for voice. It's got all your requirements. It's on target for SEO. It's guiding. It's taking the human part of it. Super valuable, and aligning it with all of your needs, your requirements, your voice. I'm so excited. It just the fact that it can review content. We got people producing AI content left and right now, and most of it is just steaming garbage, right? But we can build tools that'll really evaluate it from not just an SEO perspective, that bugs me, but from an actual quality. Is the value here for the reader? Are we giving them something that they can't get in the other articles?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think if we were able to build an agent that can kind of serve as almost as a synthetic content manager to help people kind of navigate the process of creating content, which is becoming more challenging. Rather ironically, now with so much technology, it's become very competitive. So very excited about the potential. So we are watching this very closely, folks. So if we'll come up with more updates in how these tools can be used to enhance your content marketing efforts, right? Not just to produce content cheaply and easily, is how you can create exceptional content by using these tools. So I think that's the end of our show today. Rick, thank you very much for your insights and all of your research and your opinions. And thank you, folks, for tuning in. And until the next time.
Thank you, Carlos. Bye, everyone.